Hello everyone, William Tramp, also known as This Effin GM here, ready for this week's installment of This Effin Monster. Last week, we jumped through a portal to Gehenna and took a look at a truly fiendish foe, the deceptive, book-wielding Arcanaloth. This week, we're skipping the Archhag as there are no equivalent stats in the 2014 Monster Manual, and today, we will be taking a look at our first generic non-player character, or NPC, stat block, a master of stealth and murder, sure to get a lot of use in mini-campaigns, and presumably the stat block to be used for famous characters like Artemis Entreri, or that guy from the Brent Weeks novels who eventually turns into a dragon in the third book for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, so let's get ready to drop in and surprise ourselves with this effin' monster, the Assassin. The base stats of the Assassin have been changed quite a bit. While the Assassin's speed and most of their ability scores have remained the same, and the challenge rating and poison resistance has remained untouched, the 2024 Assassin has a much higher armor class, more hit points, more hit dice, better dexterity and intelligence ability scores, better dexterity and intelligence saving throws, and increased proficiency in acrobatics, perception, stealth, and initiative. Interestingly, the 2024 Assassin has lost its deception proficiency and one language, making the Assassin a lot less convincing. But I suppose an NPC Assassin has very little use for making conversation with others. Now, this does kind of cast the Assassin in a pretty narrow role of just being a straight up damage dealer, but for the most part, that's what the Monster Manual is all about. Combat statistics. I do think it's nice to see that expertise has been added to so many assassin skills and its initiative, because I think that this reflects their rogue roots a lot better. Let's talk about traits. Where the base stat block has largely been improved in favor of the 2024 Assassin, the traits tell a different story. In 2014, the Assassin got a host of rogue abilities, as well as Assassin subclass abilities. For example, the 2014 Assassin could use a level 7 rogue sneak attack ability, adding 4d6 damage under certain conditions. And the 2014 Assassin also had the rogue assassin subclass's Assassinate ability, allowing it to have advantage on targets who have not yet acted and scoring critical hits on surprised foes. In 2024, both of these abilities have been removed. Since Surprise has been changed in 2024 Dungeons & Dragons, which I discussed in this video about animated objects, I can see removing advantage on initiative checks. The Assassin's high stealth skill already grants it a pathway to gaining this benefit consistently. That stated, the ability to start a fight off with a powerful sneak attack infused critical hit will be missed. As for remaining traits, the 2024 Assassin still retains the 2014's evasion ability, granting the Assassin the ability to mitigate damage from certain dexterity saving throw based effects. Now, the 2024 evasion trait does now specify that the Assassin cannot be incapacitated to use this trait, which honestly just makes sense. Now, the Assassin's actions have been changed significantly, for better or worse. In 2014, the Assassin had the multi-attack action, allowing it to make 2 short sword attacks. Short sword attacks were made with a +6 bonus to attack, dealing 6 piercing damage and 24 poison damage on average on a hit, though a target could attempt a constitution saving throw to reduce the poison damage by half. The Assassin also had a light crossbow attack at a +6 bonus to hit with a range of 80 to about 320 feet, dealing 7 piercing damage and 24 poison damage on the average hit, with the same chance to reduce the poison damage by half. In 2024, the Assassin has now been granted 3 attacks with their multi-attack trait, and can now swap between short sword and light crossbow attacks. The short sword is now made with a +7 to attack and deals 7 piercing damage, but only 17 poison damage. But there is no constitution saving throw anymore to reduce that poison damage, and a target suffers from the poison condition for 1 round after being hit. The light crossbow has been made way better. It's made at a +7 to attack with an average damage of 8 piercing and 21 poison damage with no save for half and no poison condition inflicted. It may not sound as good, but remember, multi-attack. Now these are some interesting upgrades. On one hand, 3 attacks is better than 2 attacks, for sure. And the poison now does less damage on average than it used to, but with no saving throw to avoid half of it, it might end up being more in the long run. And the ranged attack capabilities, as I just mentioned, have very much been upgraded, making this NPC no longer a primary melee combatant. But without sneak attack, the 2024 assassin has lost about 14 average damage. Well, maybe. Let's do some quick math, assuming optimal conditions. In 2014, an assassin who struck first had advantage, sneak attack, and automatic critical hits, assuming it attacked a target who didn't know that they were there. The first attack would likely hit, dealing about 10d6 plus 3 piercing damage, accounting for sneak attack and critical, and 14d6 poison damage for an average of about 87 damage on that hit. And then its second attack, which was also very likely to hit, would deal 2d6 plus 3 piercing and 14d6 poison for an average of 59 damage. This brought the assassin's opening move to an insane average 146 damage. Now, assuming again all attacks hit and the Constitution saving throws made against the poison damage had not been made. Now, that's a lot at first, but subsequent rounds we would see a marked dip in damage capabilities, with the two short sword attacks dealing an average of 30 piercing and 49 poison damage, overall dealing about 79 points of damage in a given round. Now in 2024, assuming optimal conditions, the assassin's damage is a lot more even across the board, with each round, assuming optimal conditions, with a light crossbow, the better attack now, dealing about 3d8 plus 12 or 25 piercing damage, and 18d6 or 63 poison damage for about an average of 88 per round. So on a positive note, the extra attack has boosted the assassin's average per round damage output, and in longer combats, the 2024 version would have an edge. But without the explosive first round damage that the 2014 assassin's assassinate ability gave it, the new version still falls behind in most combats because combats tend to last about 3 rounds. This is probably fine. The original assassin had the potential to far outpace almost every monster at its challenge rating due to that first round flurry of critical hits, making it a far greater challenge than most dungeon masters and players probably anticipated it to be. Now, the 2024 assassin has been granted the classic rogue's cunning action ability as a bonus action. Yes! Allowing it to dash, disengage, and hide while still being able to make their attacks each round. This is going to go a long way to making the 2024 assassin feel more dangerous, or at least survive longer than the 2014 version, as the 2014 version did not have this capability and became pretty locked into melee once their initial assault was made, whereas the 2024 assassin can dart in, poison their target, then run out and hide again throughout the entire combat. This is going to be a lot more interesting to run than the 2014 version, which basically felt like an explosive rogue that then turned into a not very effective fighter after the first round. Okay, so how would I use the assassin in combat? Now, the assassin is the classic lurker archetype, using stealth and hit-and-run tactics against their foes, darting in to deal as much damage as possible and then bolting as fast as it can to a position of stealth so it can avoid reprisal from their enemies. The 2024 assassin is also highly intelligent, maybe more so than many wizards the party might meet at this level, and I believe that this indicates that the assassin knows who to target first and when to launch an assault. An assassin will never fight in a location that does not have plenty of places to hide. Buildings with multiple rooms they can run to and hide in, caverns with plenty of stalagmites, forests with plenty of trees, those are all fair game. But small rooms with few exits and large open plains, those are both death for the assassin, and they know it. An assassin will always seek to start a combat from hiding, and with a plus 10 to its stealth, there's a good chance that the assassin will succeed at the needed stealth DC of 15 and overcome most player characters' passive perception skill. The assassin will target either the most vulnerable member of the party or, more importantly, those who are the most perceptive. Creatures bearing holy symbols or druidic accoutrement, or lithe characters with studded leather armor and piercing weapons, or those who are just walking around in robes with their fists raised, those are all threats to the assassin's usual strategy, so they will place their efforts on removing those foes first. On the other hand, green dragonborn, abyssal tieflings, and dwarves are highly resistant to every single attack the assassin can make, and so the assassin may save these characters for last rather than wasting precious time trying to take them down first. Assassins will tend to try to attack from a range as much as it can, as the light crossbow is its most damaging attack, and will, after making their initial volley, dart away and seek a new hiding place, keeping as much distance between its foe and itself as possible. Now, eventually, the assassin might get pinned down into melee, and once the assassin sees that this is inevitable, the assassin will then switch to the short sword using its poison condition to allow the assassin to move and hide again with its cunning action, only using cunning action to disengage if the poison didn't take effect, or if the assassin can see some sort of major advantage in doing so. Now, the assassin does not have the armor class to avoid a lot of attacks, so it will seek to make sure that only one target can reasonably reprise in melee on its turn, as it knows that though it has a decent chunk of hit points, its middling AC will cause those to disappear pretty fast. Now, once an assassin hits about 40 hit points or below, they will be done, taking all further actions to dash and hide so that it may live to fight another day. Okay, what would I change about the assassin? Well, first off, the 2024 assassin's reliance on poison damage is not great. As previously mentioned, a number of species available to player characters resist poison damage and the poison condition, and the bulk majority of the assassin's damage comes from its poison blades or bolts. Look, I can understand not bringing sneak attack in, as it forces more tactical play from a game master or more rules that they'll have to remember, which and a game master may not have the same intuitive experience with sneak attack as a player who plays a rogue every single week, but I do feel that this removal has not only made it tactically less exciting of an option, but also gives it a damage dealing weakness. As a result, I would probably up the assassin's blade or bolt damage by a d6 or d8, or maybe two of them, and then reduce the poison damage by an equivalent amount. I also think that the lack of poison doses in the assassin's gear list is really odd, and I personally will absolutely be adding in a d6 or 2 doses to them so players can nab that if they are able to take the assassin down. I also think that the loss of Assassinate as an ability sucks a bit, but not from a tactical standpoint. You see, personally, when I see a non-player character that has clear correlations to a player character subclass, I want to see that subclass's special abilities reflected in some way in the NPC stat block. The rogue assassin's ability to bypass poison resistance in 2024 would be extremely useful on this NPC, but would somewhat negate a player character's choice in species by removing their one strength against it. But even so, roving aim, surprising strikes, and masterful mimicry would all be great on the NPC assassin. Death Strike, on the other hand, I think that's a little overkill on it, but this does bring me to something else I would love to see on this monster in particular, which is more NPC stat blocks at varying levels of engagement for the players. Like a lower challenge rating assassin in training, right? And a master assassin at maybe like a CR 15 or higher. I think those would be awesome. Maybe with the assassin in training having less damage dealing capabilities, and maybe the master assassin gets the rogue assassin's death strike ability, or the ability to turn into a dragon. That's a joke. Again, I'm sorry, Brent Weeks. I keep harping on you. Anyway, some sort of equivalent to the death strike ability for the master assassin. Okay, somewhat separate from things that I would like to change about this NPC stat block are some notes that I want to give on all NPC stat blocks. The assassin in 2024 has a listed alignment of neutral. Now, to some of you, this may seem odd. Murderers who aren't considered evil. But it's important to remember that the alignment section of the 2024 Monster Manual points out that neutral for NPC stat blocks are a placeholder, an indicator for game masters to place whatever alignment they think fits best for the NPC. It's also important to know that NPC stat blocks are incomplete stat blocks. You see, the idea of NPC stat blocks, like the assassin, is that they are to be of a particular species, and would therefore have some of the traits that a member of that species would have. This is a major change in the 2024 Monster Manual than the 2014 Monster Manual. Well, in a way. In the 2014 Monster Manual, NPC stat blocks were presented, and the same assumption of adding racial traits was there, but the book was also filled with examples of racially specific NPC stat blocks that amounted to nothing more really than the generic stat block with the racial abilities already added in. For an example here, take a look at the 2014 Drow Mage stat block versus the 2014 Generic Mage stat block. They're virtually identical, save for the dark vision, innate racial magic, and a ribbon demon summon ability that was tacked on to it. Now, 2024 has done away with most of these types of stat blocks, which for me is great because it basically just took up a lot more space and made the original Monster Manual feel like there was way more unique material in it than there actually was. But the downside of this is twofold. First, this adds a little bit of extra work on the Dungeon Master, remembering to customize the NPC stat blocks with traits like dark vision and species-specific languages and other traits. Now, this isn't a huge deal to me. I don't think it hurts to dip one's toe into design work as a Dungeon Master. I feel like it's just kind of part of the job, right? But the second is a little more odd to me, which is that certain species are just flat out more powerful than others, or at least have traditionally been depicted as so. Let's take the human, for example. For the most part, NPCs and monsters don't get feats. Those are player-specific abilities, but the human's main specific trait is the ability to get a free feat. Am I supposed to add an origin feat to every NPC? I can tell you that previous stat blocks did not do that. In 2014, humans and pre-written adventures typically use the stat block as presented, and other races would use the stat blocks with special writers written into the entry, such as, like for instance, if they would have a dwarf, they would say, use the assassin stat block, but give them dark vision and resistance to poison or something like that. Well, this isn't a huge deal for most. It's always bothered me just a little bit. It also bothered me that not all traits are to be added, right? Just a few of the most relevant ones. What I wish the designers would have done is added a table of species-specific traits to add to NPC stat blocks in the Monster Manual. That way they can ensure balance and ensure that I don't need to reference two separate books every time that I wish to add one of these to my games. Flea Mortals did it. Other than that, the assassin is pretty decent and does what it says on the box. It hides, it attacks for great damage, and then it bolts away. For the most part, perfect. Okay, and that's it. That's the assassin in the 2024 Monster Manual for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Generic NPC stat blocks are the most used stat blocks in my home games, and I am happy to see that one of the more feared ones has gotten, honestly, much needed facelift. Now, next week, join me as I take a look at a staple of druids all over the known universes, Awakened Plants. Bet you're real excited for that one. Either way, thank you for joining me in this discussion of assassins. And if you're so inclined, please consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel, as I'm trying hard to achieve my goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of this year. And every like and subscribe really helps. Otherwise, hey, have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on This Effin Monster.